What's up, Stitches, and welcome to the Ranney Knits podcast. This is my podcast all about the things I am making with my hands and yarn. My name is Justine, and I am a knitter and an aspiring crafty goddess. It has been a while since I have sat on my floor in front of a camera and talked at it, so we'll see how this goes. First of all, before I get into the knitting, I just want to say thank you. You have thousands of options when it comes to knitting podcasts, and it just means so much to me that you have chosen to spend some time with me and share my knitting journeys. I really appreciate it. I love you guys, and yeah, it means a lot. So I would love to hear from you, to connect with you. So if you would like, please do, I don't know what that was, if you would like, please do join in the discussion, comment below, join our Ravelry group, that's Ranney Knits Podcast on Ravelry, and connect with me on Instagram. I would love to be your friend, so go find me. I'm Ranney Knits on Instagram, so thank you so much. Let's be friends. Not gonna lie, this is my third attempt recording this today. We'll see how this goes. Third time's a charm, right guys? I have been gone. It has been over 2 months since I've done this. So I'm just kind of like working out the kinks. I feel like it's back to where I started in November. But that's okay. We'll get there. Just bear with me. Speaking of amazing people who I've connected with through this podcast, I received a package last week from an amazing friend and podcast viewer, Kateni, and she sent me this mug, you guys. It is so beautiful. Look at the little fish. So, thank you again, my friend. It is, it's really special, and I just feel so lucky to have met so many incredible people, incredible makers and crafters and knitters and crocheters, and it's just, you guys are amazing. So yes, and I am, even though it's probably about 85 degrees, I am drinking a warm beverage because that's who I am. So, in case you haven't seen any of my past episodes, this has little fish on it because I spend my summers as a commercial fisherman in Alaska, and so that's why I haven't podcasted for the last 2 months. And it's this insane, incredible, hard, beautiful job that I absolutely love and wouldn't trade it for the world. Where am I going with this? And I remember, I had mentioned before I left that I was going to try to do a little vlog, while I was there, which I did. However, all of that footage is on my external hard drive, which is still in Alaska because I left it there. So hopefully one day that will see the light of day, but you'll just have to anxiously wait for that vlog, which maybe we'll make it one of these days. Hopefully I'll get my external hard drive back, because that would be nice. It has been 2 months, but as far as knitting goes, I have very little to show for it. It's been longer than 2 months. It's been about 2.5, close to 3. So I finished one thing while I was away, but it was a good thing to finish. And that was my Kings County socks by Laurel Grochowski, who is Steady Hands Co. on Instagram and Ravelry. If you have watched previous episodes, I have talked about these quite a bit because I started them in March, but they are finished. I do have a pair of socks, and the cable pattern is just gorgeous. And I know I probably complained about these a little bit, but they are really beautiful. And once I started cabling without a cable needle, that helped immensely. That is the only way I want to cable so far, and that is the only one. That is the only way I want to cable from now on. And yeah, they're just really gorgeous. You can see, I did put them on immediately after finishing them, and you can kind of see that the color's fading a little bit. I must have worn them. I was low on socks this summer, you guys. I was kind of wishing I had brought more hand knit socks, because I think I've mentioned this. I don't really wear hand knit socks regularly, but up there, because it is cold and sandy, I wear socks all the time up there, and having warm hand knit socks is just delicious and delightful. And yes, it's kind of like, I mean, clothing up there gets worn pretty hard because you're working all the time and you're dirty all the time, and it's, yeah, we get gross up there. But yeah, having a little nice pair of hand knit socks was absolutely delightful. So yep, a little bit of wear on them. This is a wool silk blend, which I've never knit socks out of this particular type of yarn, so that was kind of interesting to do that. And it is, for lack of a better word, it is rustic. I mean, it's got that crunchiness that silk sometimes has, and the wool is, I don't think this is merino wool. I think it's, I'm not sure exactly what kind of wool it is, but yeah, it's pretty hardy stuff, which is kind of interesting because this cable is so delicate and beautiful. So it's an interesting combination, and I really, really enjoy these socks. So I would absolutely knit another pair of the Kings County socks, even though it took me months and months and months to knit them. That's just the way I am with socks. Since I have been home, I've been home for about 2 weeks now, I have been working on the Aya tank top by Gabrielle Vezina. She is Gabrielle Knits on Instagram and Ravelry, and this is my completed Aya tank top. So I started this a little less than 2 weeks ago because it is warm, and I have a pretty big stash of cotton. Well, no, I don't have a pretty big, what am I saying? I have a sweater quantity of this Knit Picks Shine Sport that I was intending on making something. I was a summer tank top. I think last year I found a pattern that I wanted to make, and I bought this from Knit Picks, and then realized the pattern was for, I think the pattern was for like a worsted weight, and for some reason I bought sport weight. And I could have figured out how to make it with this yarn, but I just was lazy and threw it in my stash. So yeah, that's the story of the Knit Picks Shine Sport. I found this tank top pattern and really liked it, and figured I have the yarn, so I decided to make it, and that's my story. I meant to wear this today on the podcast, but I finished it last night and blocked it. I washed it, wet blocked it, and it is still very wet. So I'm going to put this back on the blocking mats, but I guess I should talk about the actual pattern. It is a super cute tank top pattern. Yep, it's got little lacy eyelets on the front. The back is a higher back, and yeah, it's got some waist shaping in it. The waist shaping is optional, and it's got the same lace on the bottom. Yeah, it has so on the side here there was supposed to be like a garter. Yeah, it has a garter strip in the pattern, so it kind of looks like a faux seam almost, and it kind of continues on. There's garter in this top lace portion. I don't know if you can see that very well, but there's a little bit of garter here, and so that side garter just continues that pattern. I decided to omit it because mostly laziness. I kind of just wanted a project I could just knit in the round and just go and not really think about switching, purling, knitting, whatever. But yeah, so I like it both ways. I like it in the pattern photos with the garter on the side, and I like it this way with just the plain stockinette. But yeah, that is the tank top, and I'm going to put that back and let it block some more. I will fix it later. So yeah, that was a fun, quick knit that I highly recommend you go check out the pattern if you're looking for a little tank top. Something easy breezy beautiful. And that's it for my FOs. That's what I have to show for 2.5 months. As far as whips go, I have more whips happening than I usually do. I usually try to keep it to around 3. Right now I have like 6. So I'm not going to show you all of them right now. I'm just going to focus on how many do I have? I just have 2 today that I want to talk about, just for interest of time. Let's talk about some whips. Okay, so I have 2, like I said. My first whip is one that I started working on again. I did not start this last night, but I did start working on this again last night. This is River by Sylvia McFadden, and, or as she has known, Soft Sweater Designs, I think, on Instagram and maybe Ravelry, I don't know. This is River, and I started this shawl in April of 2017. So this has been hanging out in a bag under my bed for over a year. This shawl predates the podcast, but it has not made an appearance on the podcast until now. And so I started working on this because I had an idea to make my mom a Mother's Day shawl. And I first cast this on, I started with a white main color and then the blue stripy contrasting colors, and I hated it. I hated the white. So I frogged that. So I probably got to about here and decided this wasn't really the shawl I wanted to make for her for Mother's Day. So I ended up using the same yarn in her Mother's Day shawl, and that was the Lorelei shawl by Lisa Hahn. Anyways, yeah, I this was very, very nice, and it's very, very pretty, but it wasn't quite what I wanted to do for Mother's Day. I wanted something that was a little bit more just a little bit more fancy, I guess. I thought this was a little bit too simple, and while I love simple, I wanted that to be like a really special Mother's Day shawl. This has been sitting around for quite some time. I probably would have frogged it, except the way that it's knit, I would have ended up with 1,000 little teeny tiny pieces, which is what happened when I frogged the first version. I just had, you know, little, like 8 little balls of teeny tiny little pieces of yarn. And at some point I decided that I would be more motivated to finish this if I wove in all the ends. So the last time I worked on this was about here, because I decided to weave in all of these ends. And yeah, then I set it down for about a year. So I did pick this up last night after I finished my Aya tank top, and I started working on it. The reason I picked this up was not because I was super motivated, and not because I'm really interested in having a shawl, because I kind of have quite a few shawls. My shawl collection grew considerably last year, before I discovered the joy of knitting sweaters this year. Woo! Did you hear that? Both at the same time. That was my shoulders. So I am knitting this with, this is Manos del Uruguay, Alegria. It's I don't know what the composition of the yarn. It's merino, probably some nylon. I don't really remember. I'm so good at this. I did write show notes. I just don't remember what this particular yarn is made up of. So this is what I'm knitting this with, and I have another ball of it somewhere. But my contrast is, this is coming up way brighter on camera. It's not quite as blue as this, actually, IRL, but this is Knit Picks Stroll Tonal, which, if you've watched before, I am slowly working through my endless supply of Knit Picks Stroll Tonal, which I acquired at some point. I don't know how I got so much of it. I think I was just excited by all their colorways. I have another skein of this, which I bought to finish this shawl. However, I forgot about that because this whip has been a whip for so long that I tend to forget about it. So I decided I wanted to use that skein that I have here in a V-back tee, which is a pattern by Jamie Hoffman, and it just came out, and it's got like it's a little t-shirt that's kind of got a fade going through it, which I've never done a fade before, but I was playing around with color combos, and man, these colors are not true at all. I'm not entirely sure why, but This is more of a teal blue, and it's coming across very royal bright blue. But anyway, I was playing with these colors, and I thought that would make kind of an interesting fade. I've never done a fade before, so I don't really know quite how to do it. I think it's one of those things that you just have to do in order to figure out. So that's what I have right now, and like I said, these colors are absolutely not showing up on camera as what they look like in real life, but anyways, yeah, so I want to make that tee. However, I don't want to run out of this yarn for this shawl again, because then I'd have to order more Knit Pick Stroll Tonal, and we don't want that. I don't need that in my life. Not that it's bad. I just am ready to move on. I'm ready to work with something besides this yarn. I think if I didn't have such an enormous stash of it, I would, I like working with it. It's great. It's just, I just want to use it all up. So yeah, so what I am attempting to say is I want to finish this shawl, use up the yarn, and use the yarn that I need to of this Stroll Tonal to finish this shawl. Yeah, hopefully I will get this finished so that I can start on that V-back tee, because I'm excited about that, and I'm kind of excited to try out a fade. The way she does it, she's got a broken fade, so she incorporates the colors slightly differently than you would your normal fade, which I've never done, so I'm talking about it like I know what I'm talking about, and I absolutely do not know what I'm talking about. So, and that is pretty much par for the course for this podcast, talking like I know what I'm talking about. The last whip that I am going to chat with you about today is my Impossibly Possible socks. I have shown these on the podcast before, and I only started knitting on them again last week or something. I got really into them for about 2 days and finished the heel, and I was very excited about it. Yeah, Sock Mojo came back for 2 days, and it was awesome, because these are glorious, and they match my tank top right now. This is the yarn is part of a sock set that I purchased from Nano Stitch Lab, which is a indie dyed. Is that right? It has been so long since I've used these terms. Why does that sound weird? It's a indie dyed yarn company located here in Seattle, and they are awesome. This is their Woman of Wonder sock set. Yeah, that I had there was a little Wonder Woman stitch marker charm that came with this, and I don't know what happened to it. I will have to find that. Yeah, so I was really excited because this is a mosaic knit. This is a mosaic stitch pattern, which is great if you work on it continuously. If you work on it and then stop for 2 months and then try to pick it back up, it's kind of hard because like, you can see the pattern in mosaic knitting, obviously. You can see it as it's being knit, but in the pattern itself, the chart is really hard for me to visualize how it translates to this pattern. So it's really hard to see where you are in the mosaic pattern when you're just looking at the chart. It's kind of like one of those magic eye things. Like, if I kind of hold it and blur my eyes, blur my vision, I don't blur my eyes, I can kind of tell where the pattern is going, but it's not like stranded colorwork charts where you can really clearly see exactly what's happening in the colorwork. So I picked this back up and had no idea what I was doing, and it took me a while to figure it out again. We are back on track. I know what I'm doing. The other issue I had, so because this is mosaic knit, I cast on more stitches than I would if I were knitting this just plain stockinette socks. Usually my stitch count for my feet for stockinette is like 64, and this one I did more than that because the mosaic knit isn't quite as stretchy as just a stockinette. So I knew I did that, but then when I got to the heel, I had 30 stitches on my needle, and so I thought, that's weird because that means I only have 60 stitches, because obviously, why would I have a different number of stitches on one needle than the other needle? And so I just assumed that they were even. So I did a fish lips kiss heel, over 30 stitches, yeah, and then realized that I have actually 40 stitches on one needle and 30 stitches on the other needle, because that makes the mosaic pattern, it's a repeat of 10, so that just makes it easier to do the repeats rather than breaking it up halfway through. Yeah, so I don't know if you're familiar with sock knitting, but usually you make your heel on half of the stitches and not less than half the stitches. So it fits. I don't really know if that's going to be weird though. I can put it on my foot because it's toe up, and it fits on my foot, so maybe that's fine. Maybe that's the way I'll want to knit socks from now on, is to put less than half on the heel portion. So it does make the, I don't know what you would call the top part of your foot, that's not the, like where your foot turns into your ankle, that's not the instep. I don't know what that's called. If you know the term for the part where your foot turns into your ankle, please let me know. But so we'll see. And I'm going to right now write this down, what I did on this one. So just in case it takes me another 4 months to finish the second sock, I will know what I did. But yeah, so that kind of, it's not a total disaster, and I'm not gonna rip out the heel and redo it because I'm kind of curious to see how that will work. But it did kind of kill my mojo working on this sock. I just kind of felt like that's a pretty major mistake. That's a pretty major mistake, so I don't know, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, these are the Impossibly Possible socks. You should go check out this pattern because it's really fun. The way the designer knit her sample, she used a mini skein gradient set. So each colorwork section is worked in a different background color. and it looks really, really great. Also, the pattern has a heel flap and gusset, which I did not do because I didn't really like the way it broke up the mosaic pattern. I like a fish lips kiss or an afterthought heel for mainly aesthetics, which the heel flap and gusset is probably a safer way to go if you've never knit socks, or if you're knitting socks for another person. I would definitely knit a heel flap and gusset if I were knitting socks for a person who I didn't really know exactly how they like to wear their socks. But the fish lips kiss heel or the afterthought heel, you really can't beat it as far as looks go. I mean, it doesn't break up the pattern. It looks really great. But for a lot of people, it doesn't quite fit them the same. Everybody's foot is different, and everybody's preference for socks, for how socks fit, is different. So this is just the way I like to knit my socks for me. So I made it through my first episode back. Hopefully you did too, and if you are viewing this right now, thank you so much for sticking with me. I'll keep coming back. I'll keep doing this because it really is a lot of fun. I hope you will tune in next time. My next podcast will be sometime next week. Let's see, next week is the last week of August, so I will probably podcast sometime later next week. I am going to be doing a giveaway on the podcast, so hopefully you will tune in for that. And if you want to make sure you don't miss that episode, please do subscribe to my channel. It helps so much, along with liking and commenting on my videos. So thanks for that. And I will see you next time.